guys, welcome back to Atheist Bible Study number 10, Jacob's Children. So in our last video, we left off with Jacob. He had just left his family because his brother wants to kill him. And he is heading towards Haran to meet with his mother's brother to get a wife from him. And he stopped in Bethel and had a dream about God blessing him, and he thought the place was really neat. And then that's pretty much where we ended it last week. Chapter 29, Jacob leaves Bethel and he arrives in the land of the eastern peoples. And when he's there, he sees 3 flocks of sheep sleeping near a well. And he asks the shepherds, he says, "Where are you from?" And they reply, "Haran." Jacob asks them if they know Laban. And they say yes they do. And he asks them, "Well, how is he?" He says he's well. About this time, one of the shepherds is like, "Oh, look, here comes Rachel now." Rachel is Laban's youngest daughter. He has 2 daughters. Leah is the oldest one. Rachel is the younger one, and she's coming in now. She's the shepherdess. Genesis 29, verses 10 through 14 says, "When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah, so she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, 'You are my own flesh and blood.'" So Jacob met Rebekah, and he watered her sheep and whatever, and he kissed her just randomly. He's a stranger, he kisses her, and then he starts weeping aloud. Personally, if some dude just like that I didn't know came up to me and started doing shit like that, I'd be really concerned about their mental state and my safety, probably. Still in chapter 29, we move on to the next story. Jacob marries Leah and Rachel. After a month of Jacob working for his uncle, Laban comes to him and he's like, "Hey, just because you're my relative doesn't mean that you should be working for me for free. So, name your price." At this time, the Bible mentions that Laban has 2 daughters, Leah being the oldest and Rachel being the youngest. It also says that Leah has weak eyes, which I translate into Leah's ugly, and Rachel is beautiful. And Jacob loves Rachel, probably because she's prettier, but he loves Rachel. So he says to Laban, he says, "I'll work for you for 7 years if you give me your youngest daughter, Rachel." And Laban agrees, and so he does. He works for 7 years, and it says that the 7 years was like nothing to him because he loved Rachel so much, whatever. So he gets to the end of the 7 years that he's supposed to be working for him, and he comes to him and he says, "Give me my wife now so I can lie with her. In other words, give me your daughter, I want to fuck her." So Laban holds this, feast and I guess a celebration. And then at the end of the evening, he brings out his daughter Leah, not Rachel, Leah, to marry Jacob. So Jacob marries Leah, and then he sleeps with her that night. And then the next morning, he notices it's not Rachel. So, he must have loved Rachel so much to not realize he didn't marry her. And he slept with Leah. He slept with her. He had sex with her. So unless the entire marriage and everything after was done in pitch black darkness, I don't see how this is even possible. They're not twins. They're not identical. Leah isn't pretty, and Rachel is. So I don't understand how this mistake was made. But the next day, Jacob, he goes to Laban and he says, "Hey, what's up? Why did you give me Leah? I wanted Rachel. This is not what I ordered." Genesis 29, 26 through 27, Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish the daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also in return for another 7 years of work." I mean, come on. He's already worked for you for 7 years. And you screwed him out of that, basically, because he didn't want to marry Leah, but you made him work for you for 7 years, knowing that he was doing it for Rachel. And then you give him Leah, and then you're like, "Well, sorry, it's just our custom. We didn't tell you about it before, but deal with it. And also, if you want Rachel, the one who I agreed to give you in the first place, then that's going to cost you another 7 years. So 14 years total that he has to work for this man for Rachel. So Jacob agrees and Laban gives him Rachel, and now he has 2 wives. Again, polygamy, but this time it's not just polygamy. He's married to 2 sisters. It's more than just polygamy. It's polygamy, it's incest, and it's creepy. He's their cousin, they're sisters, and he's their cousin. This is just like a triangle of like family fuckery. I don't know what else to say about it. It's creepy and it's gross, and I wouldn't want to be married to the same man that my sister's married to, let alone having sex with him. The last story that I'm going to cover today in chapter 29 is going to be Jacob's children, and it's going to go a little bit into the beginning of chapter 30. But I'm not going to continue chapter 30. We're going to pick up on that next week. But this one is chapter 29 and the beginning of 30, and it's Jacob's children. So since Jacob loved Rachel more, God decided to punish her for it, I guess, and make her barren. But Leah, he opened up her womb and she got pregnant, and she had a son, and she named him Reuben. She thought to herself, well, I've given my husband a son. Now he's going to love me. Sorry, Leah, he still doesn't love you. Giving him a son isn't going to change that. And let me tell you, I'm pretty sure it's not how it works. Never in the history of ever has having a baby made somebody love you or fixed a relationship. If anything, it's only going to make an already bad relationship worse. It's not a solution. But Leah, I guess, doesn't realize this, so she goes on to have another son. She names him Simeon. She says the same thing. Then she has a 3rd son, and she names him Levi, and she thinks the same thing, but you know what? Jacob still doesn't love Leah. He doesn't love her. Nothing she's doing, no amount of kids that she's gonna have is gonna make him love her. It doesn't work that way. He loves Rachel, not Leah. Leah just got screwed into having to be married to this guy because he wanted to marry her sister. It's not really Leah's fault, and it's kind of unfair for her, but this is the life that's been chosen for her. Leah goes on to have a 4th son, and she names him Judah. And she decides at this point, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and worship God instead of worrying about my husband loving me. And then she stops having children. So this is where it goes into chapter 30. Rachel comes to Jacob, and she says she's jealous because her sister's having her husband's kids, and she isn't. No. Rachel says to Jacob, give me kids or I'll die. That's a little dramatic. Rachel, calm down. You're not gonna die. I promise, not having children has never killed anybody. Unless you do it to yourself, you're not gonna die. So relax. I promise it's gonna be okay. But Jacob kind of gets mad, and he's like, who do you think I am, God? Like, I don't control this. It's not my fault. So Rachel goes and she gets her servant and brings him to Jacob. If you remember the story of Abraham and Sarah, formerly known as Abram and Sarai, which is probably what they were called during the story. If you remember what happened when Sarai brought her maidservant to Abram and had him impregnate her, then you probably know where this is going, because that's what that's what Rachel does here. Rachel brings her maidservant that her father had given her when she got married, Leah got one too, to Jacob and says, get her pregnant for me. Basically, I'll raise the baby. But not just that. She gave her to him as a wife, as another wife. So at this point, Jacob has 3 wives and 4 sons. So just keep that in mind, because these numbers are going to keep growing. Wife number 3 has 2 sons, David and Naphtali, and Rachel named both of them. Wife number 3 didn't get to name them. I'm calling her wife number 3 because I don't remember her name, and I don't think I could pronounce it anyway. So, whatever. It's not important. She's a maid. She's the 3rd wife. At this point, Leah comes around. She realizes she's not having any more kids. Even though she's already had 4, she needs more. So she brings her servant to Jacob and does the same thing. He marries her, he gets her pregnant. So now we're up to 4 wives and 6 sons. Wife number 4 has 2 sons, Gad and Asher. So we're up to 8 sons now. So down the road, Reuben, the oldest son from Leah, he finds some mandrake plants. Now, mandrake plants look something like this in real life, but if you're familiar with Harry Potter, then you probably are thinking of something more like this. So Reuben brings the mandrakes to his mother Leah, and Rachel's like, hey, can I have some of those mandrakes that your son brought? And Leah says, no, why would I give you any? You stole my husband, so now you want to steal my son's roots? Now? No. Rachel says, well, you know, hey, if you want, you can have sex with Jacob tonight in exchange for some of your mandrake plants. So I guess she agrees. Genesis 30, verse 16, so when Jacob came from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. You must sleep with me, she said. I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he slept with her that night. So, I'm sorry, but you must sleep with me because I've hired you with plants? Like, that's some kind of, like, biblical prostitution of the husband. Really, because Rachel's more or less the pimp, and Jacob's the hooker, and Leah's the John. So I'm assuming it's that night that Leah gets pregnant, she goes on to have another son, and then sometime later she has another son. So she herself, Leah, has given Jacob 6 sons at this point, and she's like, oh, I've given him 6 sons, he must love me now. Surely, he's got to love me now. Sorry, I don't think so. And then again, sometime down the road, Leah has a daughter named Dinah. But all of a sudden, God remembers Rachel, like he'd forgotten about Rachel or something, I don't know, but it says that God remembered Rachel, and he finally opened her womb back up. She's no longer barren, and he gives her a son, who she named Joseph, and at the end of that story, she simply says, may the Lord bless me with another son. So basically, we're going to end it with that. Rachel finally had her own baby, Joseph, and she's asked for God to bless her with another son. I don't know if God's going to give Rachel any more children or not. Probably. We're going to get into that when we continue chapter 30 in the next video that I do, probably next week. So we'll find out. But this story is just silly. I mean, it's like Battle of the Babies. We've got Leah popping out like baby after baby, and then she's all of a sudden done, and then we got the servant having babies here and there, and then Leah again, and then finally Rachel. So what it comes down to, at the end of this story, we have Jacob, we have 4 wives, Leah, Rachel, and servant number 1 and servant number 2, and then we've got 11 sons. I'm not going to name them all, but they'll be listed right here. So if you want to see their names, here they are, in order. And then we also have a daughter, Dinah. That's 12 kids. We are up to par with the Cheaper by the Dozen family at this point. They have the same amount of kids, and they're probably gonna keep having more, except the biggest difference is that Jacob has 4 wives instead of 1, so it's probably a little bit easier to keep their children reined in than the children from Cheaper by the Dozen. But regardless, 12 kids. 12 kids. That's a lot of kids. I have 2, and that's a lot for me, so I couldn't imagine having 12. And 4 wives, I'm pretty sure 1 wife is enough for 1 man. For most men, anyway, 1 wife is plenty. I know I can be a bit much, personally, for my husband, so I couldn't see him even wanting to deal with more than 1 of me, let alone 4. But at least they're not all his cousins. Only 2 of them are his cousins, and they're sisters. But the other 2 are unrelated. They're just servants. So it's not quite as bad, right? Anyway, I hope you liked this video, this story. I mean, all it really was information about Jacob's children, and how many children Jacob has, and who their mothers are. I don't think that this is really important. All of these children can't possibly be this important to the story. A couple of them probably are. Alright, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for watching my video. Share it if you liked it. If you didn't like it, why not? Share it anyway. If you haven't already, subscribe. If you're on a computer, there should be a little like atheist symbol in the bottom left corner of this screen of the video, so you can click on that and subscribe, or if not, if you're on like a phone or something, you can go to my channel and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video, please. let me know what you think, if you like it, if you have any suggestions for any other types of videos that you would like to see, let me know that too, because like I mentioned in a few videos back, I want to do other things other than just the Bible study stuff, as long as it's more or less atheist related, or related to religion in some way. It doesn't have to be related to atheism, but religion. Let me know what type of things that you would like to see, and I'll see what I can do about them in the future. So thank you for watching. Again, share my videos, please, because that is the biggest thing for me. The biggest way to get my videos out there and get them seen is if you guys are sharing them, because I can only share them to so many places myself. I need you guys to do it for me. So just leave a comment if you want to, like my video, share it, and subscribe, and come back and check next week for the next one.